How's it going, everyone? I'm VenomousStare, the Todd Heap of StarCraft 2. Today, I'm going to be doing a Zerg versus Terran commentary. This is a ladder game I just played, and it's unique and interesting, and I think a lot of good general concepts can be illustrated through viewing this replay, so we're going to do just that. This is me, Savagewood, in the bottom left here of Newkirk Precinct, playing Zerg. My opponent is going to be a very creative, cheesy player named Anthem A, who is intelligently making his first depot at the top of his ramp. I'm going to be throwing lots of newbie tips in this video, so just be warned. If you're a Terran player and you just started the game, you're new to the game, and you're playing against Zerg, you definitely want to wall in, which means build your structures at the top of your ramp in such a way that prevents Zerglings from running in. In this Protoss, you do the same thing, but you leave a little gap that you put a Zealot in and put it on hold position. Very basic, but it's good to note these things because there are new players. So, whenever Terran players start the game against Zerg, almost always you're going to see a Reaper and then an Expand, so it's interesting to note a deviation. On this map, it is hard to scout your Terran opponent as far as whether or not they're expanding. Because of the Overlord path, you kind of have to do one of these where you dip around, unless they go Reaper, but if all they have to do is make one Marine after Reaper and they'll kill your Overlord every time, unless you bump it around here. So one base builds are powerful on this map because the Overlord timing to see the natural, unless you play super risky and just send it straight across, takes way longer to get the scouting information. So this means that abnormal play is strong. So we see instead of a Reaper and a command center, we saw a second barracks which is producing Marines, and then after a little bit of Marine production, a reactor came down as the factory was being built. This is very common. Whether it's on one base or two, you see this a lot versus Zerg. The Hellion push at the very beginning in the mid game, as soon as you get the factory and you swap a Rue and put a reactor on. The reason this is so common is because you don't want Zerg to be able to constantly make drones and expand and surge ahead, so you make the Hellion, the fire car, to run around and force Zerg to make Zerglings, Queens, static defense possibly, you name it. Basically, if you can pressure Zerg, limit their creep spread, that's what you want to be doing. You don't want Zerg to be able to make a bunch of drones. So here's a big turning point of the game. Savagewood, that's me. He runs up and he sees, okay, it's Reactor Hellion and he has a lot of Marines, so probably going to be doing a little push. But the Terran player is hiding something. This is called a proxy. A proxy in StarCraft 2 is when you hide a building somewhere on the map. Usually, the whole point of a proxy is to deceive your opponent. Because if we look at my vision, I just see, oh, well, he's going Reactor Hellion. That's pretty normal, but it's kind of aggressive. And obviously he hasn't expanded or he's delayed his expansion, so he's committing a lot to it. I'm going to pause. So the response to Reactor Hellion like this is what you see here. I'm making extra queens, already have 2 forward creep queens spreading away, and I've started to join my natural and my main together with the creep tumor. This is important because queens are very slow off creep, and I want to be able to remove my queens down when necessary. Notice I get supply blocked right at a critical point because he made this very odd amount of Marines. Usually you don't see this, but this is the whole point of why he delayed the expansion, so in favor of this Marine play. Now these Marines, even though there's only 8 of them, this is going to make his push way stronger, and I'll explain why. So basically, the way that I was intending on holding this push, and the way that you hold Hellion pressure, is you make evolution chambers, or baneling nests, or roachhorn, whatever the tech of choice is. You make it at the top of your natural ramp to prevent the Hellions from just running in willy-nilly, and you have creep spread to see the hellions. Of course, they're going to limit the creep spread, but then you have queens that can kind of block off the top of the ramp. Now, what the Terran player Anthem is hiding is this armory. This is a very bizarre play. You usually don't see people hide an armory, especially this early. And he's going for this very aggressive one base push where you can see he's taken off of gas, he's producing off of 2 racks, and he's making hellions. But the armory is crucial because once the armory finishes, he can morph these hellions into hellbats. And the response for a hellbat pressure, or all in this case I would say, because he's on one base and he's proxied his technology. By the way, it's risky to proxy technology because if I happen to fly an overlord up here, I can kill that, and that would be very devastating. Or if I just scouted that by happenstance, it would be very revealing as to what he was doing. So the point is that the counter for Hellions is this Sim City with Queen, but the counter for Hellbat, you really need roaches or a lot of banelings or mini queens, spines. The point is you can't cut it with lings, really. It just won't work because the Hellbats are too tanky and do too much splash. And whenever you accompany them with Marines, it's even worse. So the fact that I didn't have vision of this armory up here, I had no idea about it. So he's going to run up, I'm going to be like, oh, he has Hellions. It's no big deal, I have my queens. But then he morphs them into Hellbats. We'll see the reveal here. Yep, here it is. So at this point, I see he has 6 Hellbats and Marines. What do I have? 4 Banes and 4 Queens. I'm not holding this. He's probably going to kill these Evo chambers too, so I don't even need to bother starting upgrades, because the earlier on in the game it is, like notice it's about to be 4:20 on the clock. So I don't have a lot of money. If we go to income, I've been making pure workers pretty much. Like I haven't been focusing on making attacking units. I've been droning like I should be, and I have 30 workers. Point being, I don't have a lot of attacking units, so I have to vacate. If I waste my defensive units trying to hold this, I lose everything. I lose the natural, and I have no chance of holding it because I'm limited to 1 hatchery production. So here what we see is I'm going to make the executive decision, say, okay, I'm vacating. He can kill this base if he wants, and I'm just going to try to defend this one base. Now the thing is, if he takes the time to kill this, Hellbats don't kill buildings that quickly, and he doesn't, of course, notice he doesn't have stim or anything. He doesn't have the gas to do that. It's too early in the game for him to have that. So no stim, no combat shield Marines. The key here is to try to not lose my Banes, my drones, or my Queens. I'm going to need every little bit to hold, because he's going to be continuously reinforcing this. So I have to be able to get enough units at the top of the ramp to hold. This creep tumor is very important because I want to be able to hold at the top of my ramp, and it would suck to have to do that off of creep with slow banelings and queens. At this point, I just have to put all my drones on my minerals. I don't have another choice. So I come down here. I have to make the choice what's more dangerous. I'm more scared about this number of Hellbats than I am the Marines, honestly, because I don't have Roach Tech. I was teching into Lair and planned to go into Muta. So this is why his all-in was powerful, and the whole point of why he hid the armory, to surprise me with Hellbats. So what I want to do is get some Hellbats low with Banelings. He's very, very focused on killing this. He's not worried about preemptively splitting. He badly wants to focus fire, because every passing second this hatchery is alive is bad for him, because as soon as he kills this, even if he loses a lot to do it, my production's cut in half and suddenly we're on even footing. And most importantly, production, because in his mind he's going to be able to outproduce me with, his reactor and his 2 barracks setup that he has going, especially considering he can push up this ramp with Hellbat splash, and he doesn't think I'll be able to defend with anything but lings. So I get some decent splash down onto the Hellbats, and the broodlings do a little bit of work there. See, that's why no combat shield marine all-ins are kind of iffy. You have to really be microing a lot. Notice how much you lost along with the broodling link combo. So I cleaned up what I did. I didn't overextend and try to keep pushing him back, although I possibly could have pushed my luck. But you can always bet your bottom dollar that Terran players who do builds like this are going to keep pressuring you. And sure enough, we see Anthem A. He elects to add 2 more barracks before he goes expansion. Notice how I carefully parked my Overlord with those waypoints. If I had just straight shot in it, it would have died to his Marine, but now I have vision of his natural, so I know he doesn't have this expansion. He might have started an expansion in his main, he hasn't over here, but we know for a fact he's not mining. So I have to pause again because so much is happening. It's very important when you play against Hellbat all-ins to continuously make queens, especially if you're not going Roach. I've already made the decision I kind of want to tech into Spire. I've already gone Lair. The time for Roaches has passed, I think, so the idea here is the queens are going to be what holds off the Hellbats, and the Lings and Banes are going to deal with the Marines. Once you have 4 forward queens and some Baneling splash, honestly that's a pretty strong defensive force. The queens have transfuse, they have the ability to constantly respread creep, and creep is just pivotal when you defend. Honestly, almost every pressure Terran can do to you in the early game, it's very hard to defend off creep. So these queens that you make to defend the Hellbats are useful after holding the all-in, even if you take damage, because they're good for holding the subsequent all-in, and they're good for spreading creep, which is quintessential for playing against aggressive players, because so often you have low econ micro-based engagements that require you to get good engagements, and that's what we're going to see here. So he pushes, and as soon as he goes on creep, he tries to click away, but the fact that I had Lings and Banes ready and I already had creep up this far caught him off guard, because of course he's trying to macro, he's going down to expand, he's not just babysitting his army. And I don't have Baneling speed yet, it's researching, but I get some decent hits off. You always want to be cautious as Zerg not to overextend off of creep. If he had had several more reinforcements waiting, that could have been bad. If you always just play conservative and defend on your creep until you get your macro back established, you can ensure that you're not going to lose your valuable queens. Because right now, I know that he just expanded because of this Overlord. Notice he doesn't see that Overlord.
SCV ready.
So the point being is, economically, my expansion is going to refinish far before him. I saved my drones by making that decision to vacate and not trying to fight that lost cause at the bottom. So my economy right now is about to get back into a decent position. The Terran has mules, but his base is very mined out because he's been mule hammering, and my expansion finished before him. The fact that I have all these queens means that I can spread creep ridiculously. Now I want to talk about how I do that. I have all my creep queens bound to the 6 key. Whenever I do that, all I have to do is hit 6, hold shift, and click CCCCCCC. I have I'm not going to go into it in detail, but there's a hotkey trick where you can do add active ability hotkey and do add alternate and add it to C, and then on Zerg you can creep spread your active tumors without having to click every time. You can just spam C on your keyboard as you click across the screen and move your tumors. Whenever you creep spread with your queens, you want to hit C, hold shift, and then just click along the edge, and that will queue them up to do multiple tumors down. Another thing worth noting is the reason I didn't start upgrades earlier, other than the fact that economy obviously, is whenever someone does an all-in like that, you kind of assume they're going to kill the buildings in the front. The fact that he didn't, remember, is indicative of the fact that he really focused hard on killing that hatchery. It's important to go into your upgrades whenever you play against aggressive players. People who do aggressive one base builds are almost always going to follow it up with more aggression as far as Terran players go. Stylistically, as players, that's usually what they like, and in the game, that's usually the correct decision. If you do an aggressive early game option, usually your opponent's a little bit off balance. Even if it doesn't work out all that well, it throws a wrench in their build, so doing another aggressive option can be a good choice. So this is a big moment of contention. Let's look at Anthem's vision. He's going to move out. He killed my natural extremely early on, so normally that would mean the Zerg is behind. Maybe he doesn't have a third, his creep spread's bad, his upgrades are bad, his tech is behind, and I did lose the base. He was successful in killing the base. But this is some very important stuff I'm about to point out. There's 1/1 upgrades. Sure, Anthem has stim. He has combat shield, which is quintessential for fighting speedbanes, and he has a nice Hellbat, medevac, Widowmine mix. This is a very good composition that if you don't micro against properly a Zerg, it's very punishing. But it's a composition that in order to be punishing needs to fight off creep, and it's a composition that is good at catching people who are already behind off guard. And this is the thing about building extra queens early on as Zerg, is you get creep spread like this. You have 3 queens that constantly have the ability to spread because of the energy access. You have so many active tumors, you can get your creep spread up to mid-map. And whenever the Terran wants to push you, look at this. He's on 2 bases. I already have taken my third and have good drone income. At this point, with mutas on the way, I'm pulling ahead in 8 more drones. The Terran player has to do damage. He has 2 medevacs. He was probably expecting to get to about here and find, or like maybe about here and find creep spread, and then scan, and then push up, and then he can drop on this cliff and be obnoxious. But it's a very awkward position for Terran to get mid-map, see a bunch of creep, know, okay, he has forward queens already, which means he'll be able to focus my medevacs. It's another thing, whenever you make multiple forward queens in the early game, it's great at stopping cheese, and then they transition into everything good. Creep spread. They're great defensive tools, especially because of transfuse. They're great for replenishing creep spread against aggressive players, and more importantly, you can click them out of your control group and send them to your third as soon as it finishes, and you don't have to wait for that awful 30 seconds of waiting for your fresh queen to finish at your third so you can replenish drones immediately. Injecting your third as soon as it finishes and being able to hammer out drones with that first initial wave is very important when it comes to keeping your macro up, because it means that basically your third base becomes online very quickly as opposed to having to ramp up and kind of go up gradually like a graph. It's more of like a sharp increase because you get all that income instantly and you have a power spike. That is even more noticeable whenever your opponent is playing an aggressive 2-base style, and he's delayed many things. In order for him to get this good unit composition with mines, Hellbats, and Marines, Anthem has forsaken a lot. Upgrades and a third base and gas. He has 91 supply, yes, but he doesn't have upgrades either. So he has a lot of good tech units. So let's see what happens. Immediately, he has scanning. Okay, where is his army? He has creep all the way up here. The reason creep is important is not only vision, because obviously that's a huge deal for Zerg to know when your opponent's attacking you, but the speed. Anthem's composition is very good if it catches me off creep and allows him to set up favorable engagements with Hellbat and mine positioning. But if he's always in threat of being overrun because of creep spread, it takes away the most powerful part of his comp, which is Hellbat and Widowmine base play. So here he's going to do something intelligent and say, well, he has a lot of creep spread in the middle of the map. Instead of trying to waste a bunch of scans when I'm on 2 bases, I'll just push up over top. But once again, I have pushed creep spread up here with another queen all the way up top. So at this point, if we look at his bases, he has to mule desperately to try to afford money for his push. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He really didn't expect for creep spread to be up here, and that's why creep spread is so important in TVZ, because normally there would be no creep right here. This would be an advantageous spot. He could pick up, drop down on this low ground, kill these stupid cooling towers if he wanted to. No armor, 500 HP. Set up down here with mines. I mean, his choices are endless in this position. But all of a sudden with creep, he can be overrun really easily. And notice I want to keep spreading creep in the middle of the map. Also notice I've gotten a macro hatch in my main base. This is extremely important, especially if I screw up and lose this third base, because if you don't have a macro hatch and you're playing Mutiling, Baneling, and you move your third and you lose your third, you're screwed, because you just don't have enough larvae to do anything. Notice I delayed my 2-2 upgrades here because I needed pure units to hold this push. You know why he has such a big army and this push is so scary? Because he delayed his upgrades completely. He doesn't even have an eBay. So that's why I was able to delay my 2-2. Usually you never want to fall behind versus Terran as Zerg in upgrades, but whenever you have a 1-1 advantage and you have to make units to hold it, it's okay to delay your upgrades, especially this absurdly expensive defense carapace upgrade. So let's talk about how I want to engage this. I want to delay as long as possible. The last thing I want to do is just rush in for no reason. If everything goes according to plan, I want him to commit up far, and hopefully I can get him to friendly fire himself with his Widow Mines by sending some Lings in first. Or really, if he runs in really far, I can just smash him with Banelings. Remember, the fact that we have so much creep spread here means that we have a very favorable engagement coming up, because normally you would always have to worry about being kited and then running off of creep and having mines get big hits, because once you run off creep with Banes, then the mines can really punish you because you're too slow to actually retreat. So here, let's see what the Terran player does. He's pressing forward here with mines, but he doesn't have enough mines up here yet. So I run forward there with a little bit of my army, and he's forced to retreat almost completely. I triggered a couple of the mines. He took friendly fire as well. So here he tries to run forward, and you always know whenever Terran sends an individual mine like that, they're going to have to be microing it. So whenever Terran tries to pressure forward with mines, pressure forward with your army and say, okay, if you're going to set that mine there, you might take friendly fire, and I'm not going to let you set up mines in a favorable location and then take advantage of me that way. Anytime you see a Terran trying to set up mines like that on your creep and you have the ground units, go pressure him and go meet him. And that mine doesn't even get to go off. So Anthem A, he's taken his little base, he's trying to take a third, he's trying to get upgrades, but he's played so aggressively for so long, it's finally taking advantage of him. Like, it's finally coming back to haunt him, basically. At this point, I'm going to get to press my advantage. The fact that I have creep spread already mid-map is huge, because the whole point of this guy's biomine style is to put pressure on me and make me worried. And I have so much creep spread, and the fact that I didn't take any drone damage means that I have a big army. And here Anthem A is trying to set up in the middle of the map, and he takes huge Bane shots. He has 2 Liberators. He tries to siege one of them. Whenever someone tries to siege one, you always want to focus the unsiege one with your mutas and then kill the other. So notice at this point he doesn't have any production because he's been constantly focused on attacking units, and he hasn't been making any bunkers because he's been playing a very aggressive cutthroat style. His third just finished. Whenever Terrans play this aggressive and they're always pressuring you and counting on their pressure to keep you in your base, they will very frequently play undefended at home. They won't make turrets, they won't make bunkers. They rely on their aggression to keep them safe. This is an aggressive player, and I thought this was an interesting game. I took a 4th up here, and basically I focused on Mutalisks whenever I had the gas, and then I made Zerglings with my access minerals and tried to drone up bases when I could. Of course, I took my gases after I held that push and saturated them, as well as taking a 4th. It's also worth noting whenever you make a lot of queens and lay a lot of tumors down. Notice I had a lot of active tumors down still, so I could have started re-creep spreading in the middle here despite him killing all this. If any of these tips were helpful, subscribe to this channel. It's free. and click the little bell so you get notifications when new StarCraft videos come out.